Let me tell you something, honey. At 67 years old, I divorced my husband of 40 years, became an internet sensation, and proved that revenge is a dish best served with 1 million followers. But what happened to get me there? Well, that's a story worth telling. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what city you're watching from, and don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 at the end. My name is Celeste, but everyone calls me Celly. For 4 decades, I was the perfect wife to Walter, the dutiful mother to our son Derek, and later the doting grandmother to my precious Zara. I spent my days cooking, cleaning, and catering to everyone else's needs, while my own dreams collected dust in the corners of my mind. You see, when I was young, I had dreams of traveling the world. I wanted to see the ocean, walk on sandy beaches, and experience life beyond the 4 walls of our small town home. But life had other plans. I married Walter when I was 27, and before I knew it, I was pregnant with Derek. Walter worked at the hardware store, and I became a full-time housewife and mother. Walter was never what you'd call romantic or adventurous. He was practical, methodical, and believed a woman's place was in the home. "Why would you want to see the ocean, Celly?" he'd say. "We've got a perfectly good lake right here in town." He never understood that some dreams can't be satisfied with compromises. As the years passed, I watched my friends take vacations, see their children grow up and move away, and start new chapters in their lives. But not me. I stayed put, taking care of Walter's ailing mother for 15 years until she passed, raising Derek single-handedly because Walter was always too busy with work or his buddies at the bar. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I was scrolling through my phone, looking at videos of beautiful coastlines and dreaming of the day I might finally see the Pacific Ocean with my own eyes. The water was so blue, so endless, so different from anything I'd ever experienced. That's when Walter stormed through the front door, furious about something at work. "Celeste, where's my dinner?" he barked, not even bothering with a hello after 40 years of marriage. I looked up from my phone, where I'd been lost in dreams of ocean waves. "It's only 4:30, Walter. Dinner isn't usually ready until—" "I don't want to hear your excuses. You're always on that damn phone instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing." He grabbed my phone right out of my hands. "What's this garbage you're watching? Ocean videos? What a waste of time." Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was seeing those beautiful, free-spirited people in the videos living their dreams, or maybe it was just 40 years of suppressed frustration finally bubbling over. "Walter," I said quietly, "I've been thinking, what if we took a trip to California? We could see the ocean together. You always promised we would travel when we had time, and now that we're retired." He threw back his head and laughed. Actually laughed at me. "Celeste, you're 67 years old. Don't you think it's time to stop chasing foolish dreams? We've got everything we need right here. Besides, do you have any idea how much money that would cost? Money we don't have because I've been supporting this family my entire life? But Walter, you promised." He promised a lot of things when I was young and stupid. Now I'm old and wise enough to know that dreams are for young people. "You're too old for adventures, Celeste. Act your age." The words hit me like a physical blow. Too old for dreams? Too old for adventures? I felt something crack inside my chest. Not physical pain, but something deeper. Something that had been building for years. "I just thought," I started to say. "You thought wrong. And if I catch you wasting time on that phone again instead of taking care of your responsibilities, I'm going to throw the damn thing in the trash where it belongs." He tossed my phone carelessly on the counter, and I watched helplessly as the screen cracked against the edge. That's when I decided they had messed with the wrong grandmother. That night, I couldn't sleep. Walter was snoring beside me, completely oblivious to the fact that he just shattered something inside me that could never be repaired. I kept thinking about those ocean videos, about the promises he'd made when we were young, about all the years I'd sacrificed my dreams for his comfort. The next morning, I made a decision. I packed a small suitcase with a few clothes and drove to Derek's house across town. My hands were shaking as I knocked on the door, but I was determined to take control of my life for once. Derek opened the door with a surprised expression. "Mom, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" Behind him, I could see Christine, his wife, setting the breakfast table. She looked up with that polite smile she always gave me, the one that never quite reached her eyes. "I had a disagreement with your father," I said carefully. "I was hoping I could stay with you and Christine for a few days while we work things out." Derek exchanged a look with Christine that I pretended not to notice. "Of course, Mom. Come on in. Christine, Mom's going to stay with us for a while." Christine's smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "Of course, Celeste, you're always welcome here. Are you hungry? I was just making breakfast for Derek before he goes to work." I spent the first day trying to stay out of their way, helping with small chores and playing with my granddaughter Zara when she got home from college classes. But by the evening, I could sense the tension building. Derek kept asking me what had happened with Dad, and I kept giving him vague answers. How could I explain that his father had crushed my spirit with just a few cruel words? How could I tell him that I was tired of being treated like unpaid help in my own home? On the second day, Christine was making dinner when her phone rang. I overheard her talking to her sister, and my heart sank as I listened from the living room. "No, I know it's only been 2 days, but I'm already exhausted," Christine was saying in a hushed voice. "She wants to help with everything, but honestly, she's just getting in the way. And Derek keeps asking me to make her favorite foods, which means I'm basically cooking 2 different meals every night." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. I had tried so hard not to be a burden. "I don't know how long she's planning to stay," Christine continued. "Derek says we can't kick her out, but Walter called earlier asking when she's coming home. I think this is just some kind of phase. You know how older people get sometimes? They start acting out for attention." Acting out for attention? Is that what they thought this was? That evening at dinner, Derek finally confronted me directly. "Mom, I talked to Dad today. He said you two had a fight about some ridiculous vacation idea. Don't you think you're being a little dramatic? I mean, at your age, wouldn't you be more comfortable just staying home and enjoying your retirement?" I set down my fork and looked at my son. Really looked at him. When had he become so much like his father? "Derek, I've spent 40 years taking care of everyone else. Is it so wrong that I might want to see the ocean before I die?" "But Mom, be realistic. You've never traveled anywhere. You don't even like driving on the highway. And the expense. I'm not asking you to pay for it." Derek sighed heavily. "Look, I get that you're feeling restless, but this isn't the way to handle it. Dad's worried sick about you. He's not eating properly, the house is a mess, and frankly, he needs you more than you need some fantasy vacation." Christine nodded in agreement. "Maybe we could plan a nice day trip to the lake this summer. That would be a good compromise." I stared at them both, feeling like I was looking at strangers. This was my son, the little boy I'd rocked to sleep every night, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose dreams I encouraged no matter how impossible they seemed. And now he was telling me my dreams were too big, too expensive, too unrealistic for someone my age. "Derek, when you were 8 years old, you told me you wanted to be an astronaut. Do you remember what I said to you?" He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Mom, that's different. I said, dream as big as the sky, sweetheart. And if that's not big enough, dream bigger. I never told you that you were too young or that space was too expensive or that you should settle for playing with toy rockets in the backyard." The table fell silent. Even little Zara, who had been quietly eating her dinner, looked up with interest and sympathy. "That's different, Mom. I was a child. And I'm your mother. The same woman who believed in your impossible dreams is asking you to believe in mine. But instead, you sound exactly like your father." Derek's face flushed red. "Don't compare me to Dad. I'm trying to help you see reason." "Reason?" I stood up from the table, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "The reason I've spent 40 decades cooking, cleaning, and caring for everyone else while my own dreams withered away? The reason I should accept being called too old and worthless by the man who promised to love and cherish me? Mom, please, don't make a scene," Christine whispered, glancing toward the neighbors' houses. That's when it hit me. They didn't see me as a person with valid feelings and dreams. I was just an inconvenient old woman having a tantrum, disrupting their comfortable life. I looked around the table at Derek's embarrassed face, Christine's obvious discomfort, and then at Zara, whose eyes were filled with something I hadn't expected, understanding and sympathy. "You know what?" I said, picking up my napkin and placing it carefully beside my plate. "You're right, Derek. I shouldn't make a scene, but I also shouldn't have to apologize for wanting more from life than being everyone's unpaid housekeeper." That night, as I lay on their guest room bed, I heard Derek and Christine arguing in hushed voices down the hall. How long is this going to go on? I can't handle having her here indefinitely. She's disrupting our entire routine. I know. But what am I supposed to do? I can't just throw my own mother out on the street. Then convince her to go back to your father. This whole thing is ridiculous anyway. She's 67 years old, Derek. What does she think she's going to do? Start some new life at her age? I pulled the covers over my head, but I could still hear Derek's response. I'll talk to her tomorrow. Try to make her see reason. She'll go back to Dad eventually. Where else is she going to go? Where else was I going to go? That question echoed in my mind for hours. But as I finally drifted off to sleep, another voice whispered in the darkness. Zara's voice from dinner when she'd squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, I believe in your dreams, Grandma, and I think you're brave. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe at 67, I didn't have many options left. But little did they know, their biggest mistake was underestimating what a determined grandmother could accomplish when she finally decided to fight back. That's when I decided they had messed with the wrong grandmother. The next morning, I made my decision. After Derek left for work and Christine went to run errands, I quietly packed my suitcase and left a note on the kitchen table. Thank you for your hospitality. I'll be fine. Please don't worry about me, Mom. But I didn't go home to Walter. Instead, I drove to the small apartment complex where Zara lived while attending the local community college. My hands were trembling as I knocked on her door, but when she opened it and saw me standing there with my suitcase, she didn't hesitate for even a second. Grandma Sally, come in. She wrapped me in the warmest hug I'd received in years. I was hoping you'd come here. Zara's apartment was tiny, just one bedroom, a small living area, and a kitchenette, but it felt more welcoming than any mansion. She cleared space on her secondhand couch and insisted I sit down while she made us both tea. Grandma, I heard what Dad said last night, and I want you to know that he's completely wrong. You're not too old for dreams, and you're definitely not too old for adventures. I felt tears prick at my eyes. Sweetheart, I appreciate that, but maybe they have a point. What does a 67-year-old woman know about seeing the world? Zara set down her tea and looked at me with fierce determination. Grandma, do you know what I see when I look at you? I see a woman who managed a household budget for 40 years, took care of a sick mother-in-law, and somehow kept dreaming about the ocean through 4 decades of people telling her to give up. She pulled out her laptop and opened it on the coffee table between us. You want to know what you know about seeing the world? Everything that matters. You know how to take care of yourself, how to budget money, how to talk to people, and how to find beauty in small moments. I watched as she pulled up maps of California, showing me coastal routes and pointing out places we could visit. We could do this, Grandma, you and me, a road trip to see the Pacific Ocean. I've got spring break coming up, and you've got all the time in the world now. But, honey, I couldn't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Actually, I'm insisting. She grinned at me. Besides, I've always wanted to see California too, but I could never afford it on my own. If we go together, we can split the costs. As we planned our potential route, Zara suddenly got an excited look on her face. Grandma, we should document the whole trip. I've been learning about social media marketing in my communications class. We could make videos of our adventure. Videos? Oh, honey, I don't know anything about that. But that's what would make it so special. A 67-year-old grandma and her 22-year-old granddaughter on a cross-country adventure. People would love that story. She showed me examples of travel bloggers, and I was amazed by the beautiful videos of people exploring different places and actually making money from it. You mean people get paid for making videos? Absolutely. Once you build an audience, you can earn money from ads and sponsorships. Grandma, there are probably thousands of women who feel exactly like you do, but are afraid to chase their dreams. The more we talked, the more excited I became. For the first time in decades, I felt like I was planning something for myself. That afternoon, Zara helped me set up social media accounts and showed me how to use her camera. We practiced filming in her apartment, and I was surprised to find that once I started talking, the words came naturally. Tell me about your dreams, Grandma, she said from behind the camera. I looked directly into the lens.
My name is Celeste. I'm 67 years old, and for my entire adult life, I've dreamed of seeing the Pacific Ocean. My husband told me I'm too old for dreams like that, but I'm starting to think that maybe it's never too late to live the life I've always wanted. When we watched the video back, I was shocked. The woman on the screen looked determined, hopeful, even rebellious. Grandma, this is perfect. We should post this and then document our whole journey. That evening, Derek called. He'd found my note and was worried and annoyed. Mom, you can't just disappear like that. I'm fine, Derek. I'm staying with Zara for a while. This has gone far enough. Dad wants you to come home, and frankly, so do I. Just come home, apologize to Dad, and we can all move on. I looked across the room at Zara, who was editing our practice videos. She looked up and gave me an encouraging thumbs up. Derek, I love you, but I'm not coming home to apologize for having dreams. Zara and I are planning a trip to California, and we're going to see the Pacific Ocean together. The silence was deafening. Finally, Derek spoke coldly. Fine, Mom, if you want to make a fool of yourself at your age, go ahead, but don't come crying to me when reality hits. After I hung up, Zara came over and sat beside me. Are you okay, Grandma? I took a deep breath and surprised myself. You know what? I am okay. For the first time in years, I'm actually okay. We spent the next 3 days planning every detail. I discovered I had more money saved than I'd realized. Walter had always handled finances, but I'd been secretly putting away small amounts for years. It's like you were saving up for this trip without knowing it. Maybe I was. Maybe some part of me always knew this day would come. The night before we planned to leave, Walter called. Celeste, this nonsense has gone on long enough. I'm coming to get you tomorrow morning. I looked around Zara's cozy apartment, at the road map spread across her table, at the camera equipment, and at my granddaughter making us hot chocolate. Walter, I said calmly, I'm not coming home. You're my wife, and your place is here with me. Actually, Walter, my place is wherever I choose to be. And right now, I choose to be free. I hung up and turned to Zara, who was grinning proudly. Ready for an adventure, Grandma? I smiled back, feeling more ready than I'd ever been. But what happened next made them realize their biggest mistake was underestimating what a determined grandma could accomplish. The morning of our departure, I woke up before dawn with a mixture of excitement and terror coursing through my veins. At 67 years old, I was about to embark on the biggest adventure of my life, and I couldn't decide if I was being incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Zara was already up, loading our suitcases into her small Honda Civic and checking the camera equipment one more time. Grandma, are you ready to make some magic happen? I looked at myself in her bathroom mirror. Instead of the defeated woman I'd been just a week ago, I saw someone different staring back at me. I'd bought new clothes for the trip, nothing fancy, but they were bright colors that I hadn't worn in years. Walter had always said I looked too flashy in anything that wasn't beige or gray. I'm ready, I said, and for the first time in decades, I truly meant it. Our first stop was supposed to be a small town about 4 hours away, but within the first hour of driving, something magical started happening. I began talking, really talking, and Zara kept the camera rolling. You know, I said, watching the familiar scenery of my hometown disappear in the rearview mirror, I spent so many years making myself smaller, quieter, less demanding. I convinced myself that wanting more was selfish. But sitting here now, feeling this excitement about what's ahead, I realized that maybe the most selfish thing I ever did was deny myself the chance to be truly happy. Zara glanced at me from the driver's seat, tears in her eyes. Grandma, that's beautiful. Keep talking. And I did. For hours, I talked about dreams I'd forgotten I had, places I'd wanted to see, things I'd wanted to try. I talked about the young woman I'd been before I became Walter's wife and Derek's mother. The woman who had wanted to be a travel writer, but settled for reading other people's adventures in magazines. When we stopped for lunch at a small diner, Zara immediately started filming again. Tell me about this place, Grandma. What do you think? I looked around at the quirky little restaurant with its mismatched chairs and handwritten menu. You know what I think? I think this is exactly the kind of place I would have been too afraid to try before. Walter always insisted we eat at chain restaurants because you know what you're getting. But look at this. Real character, real people, real stories. The waitress, a woman about my age with kind eyes, overheard me talking to the camera. "Honey, are you making some kind of movie?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I'm 67 years old, and I'm seeing the country for the first time in my life. We're documenting the journey." Her face lit up. "Well, good for you. I always wanted to travel too, but my late husband was a homebody. Maybe it's not too late for me either." As we continued driving that afternoon, Zara and I fell into an easy rhythm. She would point out interesting sights, I would share stories and reflections, and we both marveled at the changing landscapes outside our windows. "Grandma, I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about making yourself smaller. Do you think Mom does that too?" I considered the question carefully. Christine was a good woman, but I could see how she'd fallen into the same patterns I had, prioritizing everyone else's needs, avoiding conflict, settling for less than she deserved. "I think a lot of women our age learned to do that," I said. "We were taught that being good meant not asking for too much. But maybe it's time we all learned to take up the space we deserve." By evening, we'd reached our first overnight stop, a small motel near the Nevada border. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and affordable, and most importantly, it was a choice I'd made for myself. That night, Zara uploaded our first video to the social media accounts she'd created. She'd edited together the best moments from our day of driving, and I was amazed at how natural it all looked. "Grandma, you're a natural at this," she said as we watched the edited version together. "Look how the camera loves you." I studied the woman on the screen, animated, laughing, clearly enjoying herself, and had trouble believing it was really me. "I don't look 67 in this video." "You look ageless," she corrected. "You look like someone who's finally living." She posted the video with the title, "67-Year-Old Grandma's First Day of Freedom, Road Trip to the Pacific Ocean." And we went to sleep wondering if anyone would even watch it. I woke up the next morning to Zara shaking my shoulder excitedly. "Grandma, Grandma, wake up! You have to see this!" She thrust her phone in front of my face, and I blinked in confusion at the numbers on the screen. "What am I looking at?" "Our video has 10,000 views. And look at these comments." She scrolled through hundreds of comments, and I put on my reading glasses to see them better. "You go, Grandma. It's never too late to live your dreams." This made me cry happy tears. "I'm 58 and just filed for divorce. Thank you for showing me it's possible to start over." "My grandmother died without ever seeing the ocean. I'm so proud of you for going after what you want." "I'm 34 and you're braver than I am. This is inspiring." I sat on the edge of my motel room bed, reading comment after comment from strangers who were cheering me on, sharing their own stories and telling me how my simple video had affected them. "Zara," I whispered, "people are actually watching this. Not just watching, Grandma, they're connecting with your story. Look, we gained 2,000 followers overnight." As we got ready for day 2 of our journey, my phone rang. It was Derek, and his voice was tight with anger. "Mom, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "I'm seeing the country with my granddaughter. What's wrong with that?" "What's wrong is that you're making a spectacle of yourself online. Christine showed me some video of you talking to a camera in a restaurant. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for our family?" I looked across the room at Zara, who was packing our camera equipment and humming happily. Then I looked out the window at the open road stretching ahead of us, full of possibilities I'd never allowed myself to imagine. "Derek," I said calmly, "I'm sorry you're embarrassed, but for the first time in 40 years, I'm not embarrassed of myself, and that feels pretty wonderful. Derek, please just come home. Dad's beside himself, and this whole thing is getting out of hand. The only thing getting out of hand is my happiness, and I'm not ready to give that up yet." As we hit the road for day 2, Zara turned to me with a huge grin. "How does it feel to be a rising social media star, Grandma?" I thought about all the years I'd spent invisible, unheard, important. I thought about Walter's dismissive laughter and Derek's embarrassment. And then I thought about those thousands of strangers who had taken the time to encourage me, to share their own dreams, to tell me I was brave. I said, "It feels like I'm finally awake after a very long sleep." But what happened next made them realize their biggest mistake was thinking they could keep me quiet forever.
By the time we reached California, our little video series had exploded beyond anything Zara or I could have imagined. What started as a simple documentation of our road trip had somehow struck a nerve with people all over the country. "Grandma, we have 100,000 followers now," Zara announced as we sat in our hotel room in San Francisco, just one day away from finally seeing the Pacific Ocean. "And look at this, we're getting messages from news stations wanting to interview you." I stared at her phone screen in disbelief. Interview requests from morning shows, articles being written about the grandmother who chose freedom, and even a few small sponsorship offers. "This is all happening so fast," I said, feeling overwhelmed. "A week ago, I was just a housewife from a small town. Now, strangers are calling me an inspiration." "But that's exactly what you are," Zara insisted. "Do you know how many messages we've gotten from women saying they've left unhappy marriages because of your video? Or from people saying they're finally pursuing dreams they gave up on years ago?" She showed me some of the messages. "I'm 52 and just enrolled in college for the first time because of your story. I watched your videos with my teenage daughter, and now she understands why I'm always encouraging her to be independent. My 73-year-old mother saw your video and asked me to help her plan a trip to Europe. She's been talking about it for 30 years. That evening, as we walked along Fisherman's Wharf, a woman approached us. She looked to be in her 50s, and she had tears in her eyes. "Excuse me, are you Celeste, the grandma from the videos?" I nodded, still not quite believing that strangers were recognizing me. "I just wanted to thank you. I've been watching your journey, and yesterday I finally told my husband that I'm tired of him controlling our finances and treating me like his personal assistant. Your courage gave me the courage to speak up." After she walked away, I turned to Zara with wonder in my eyes. "Did that really just happen? Grandma, you're changing people's lives. How does that feel?" "It feels terrifying and wonderful at the same time," I admitted. The next morning was the big day. We were finally going to see the Pacific Ocean, but as we were getting ready to leave our hotel room, my phone rang. It was Derek, and this time he sounded different. Not angry, but worried. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Dad's been calling me nonstop, and he's making some threats." "What kind of threats?" "He says if you don't come home immediately, he's going to file for divorce himself and make sure you don't get a penny. He also tried to freeze your accounts, but apparently, since they're in your name only, he couldn't." I felt a chill run through me. "Derek, I need you to understand something. I'm not coming home. Not now. Maybe not ever. This trip isn't just a vacation. It's me finally choosing to live my own life." There was a long pause. Then Derek said something that shocked me. "Mom, I've been watching your videos." "You have?" "Christine showed them to me. At first, I was angry and embarrassed, but then I kept watching, and I started seeing someone I haven't seen in years. The mom who used to tell me I could do anything, be anything. The mom who believed in dreams, even when they seemed impossible." I felt tears starting to flow. "Derek," he said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry for treating you like Dad does. I'm sorry for telling you to give up your dreams. And I'm sorry it took you running away for me to realize that you're not just my mother, you're a person with your own hopes and wishes and rights." An hour later, we were standing on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean,
and I finally understood what I'd been missing my entire life. The water stretched endlessly toward the horizon, changing colors from deep blue to turquoise to silver. "It's so much bigger than I imagined," I whispered, and Zara captured every moment on camera. "How do you feel, Grandma?" I stood there, feeling the ocean breeze on my face and watching waves crash against the rocks below. I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. For the first time in my adult life, I feel like I'm home. We spent hours at the ocean that day. I walked on the beach, put my feet in the Pacific water, and collected shells like a child. Every moment was pure joy, and every moment was being shared with thousands of people who were cheering me on. But the most amazing part was still to come. As we were packing up our camera equipment, a well-dressed woman approached us. "Excuse me, are you Celeste from the Grandma Freedom videos?" "I am," I said, still getting used to being recognized. "I'm naming Sandra Phillips. I work for a major travel company, and we've been following your journey. We'd like to talk to you about a possible partnership. We think you could be exactly what we're looking for to reach mature travelers who've been told they're too old for adventure." Zara and I exchanged amazed looks. "A real business opportunity? We're prepared to offer you a significant sponsorship deal, paid trips, professional video production, and a platform to inspire other women to embrace travel at any age." As we drove back to San Francisco that evening, I couldn't stop smiling. In 2 weeks, I'd gone from being a dismissed housewife to a social media sensation with a potential business partnership. That night, my phone rang. It was Walter, and his voice was different, not angry, but desperate. "Celeste, I know about your internet thing. People are calling me, asking me why I let my wife run away, why I didn't appreciate you." I waited for him to continue. "I've been thinking maybe we could work this out. We could take a trip together, you could make your videos, and we could be together." After 40 years of dismissing my dreams, now that those dreams were making money, suddenly he wanted to be part of them. "Walter, do you remember what you said to me the day this all started? You told me I was too old for dreams. You called me worthless. I was angry, Celeste. I didn't mean—" "But you did mean it. The only reason you want me back now is because other people are telling me I have value. But Walter, I always had value. You just couldn't see it." After I hung up, Zara hugged me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Grandma. You know what the strangest part is? For the first time in our entire marriage, I wasn't afraid of him. His opinion doesn't define my worth anymore."
3 days after we returned from California, I was in Zara's apartment editing our ocean footage when someone started pounding on the door. Through the peephole, I could see Walter standing there with Derek beside him, and Walter was holding a manila envelope. "I know you're in there, Celeste," Walter shouted. "Open this door right now." Zara looked at me nervously. "Do you want me to call the police?" I took a deep breath and straightened my shoulders. "No, honey. I think it's time I faced this head on." When I opened the door, Walter pushed past me into the small apartment, waving the manila envelope in the air. "Enough of this nonsense, Celeste. I filed for divorce, and you're going to sign these papers right now." Derek looked uncomfortable behind his father, torn between supporting Walter and keeping the peace. "Hello, Walter," I said calmly. "Hello, Derek. Would you like some coffee?" Walter's face turned red. "Don't you dare act like this is a social visit. You've embarrassed me enough with your ridiculous internet performances. Half the town is talking about how my wife ran away to play make-believe on the computer." I looked at this man who had controlled my life for 4 decades, and I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, no desperate desire to please him, just mild sadness for the life we could have had if he'd ever learned to see me as an equal partner. "You're right about one thing, Walter. I have been playing make-believe. For 40 years, I pretended that being dismissed and belittled was the same thing as being loved. But I'm done pretending now. You think you can survive without me, Walter snarled. You think your little video hobby is going to support you. You're 67 years old, Celeste. Nobody wants to watch an old woman trying to act young. Zara stepped forward, but I held up a hand to stop her. This was my fight. Walter, you're absolutely right about my age. I am 67 years old. I'm also a woman who just signed a contract to be paid more money than you ever made to travel the world and inspire other women. I'm a woman who has over 200,000 people following her story online. I'm a woman who has been interviewed by 3 different news stations this week. I walked over to Zara's laptop and turned it around so Walter could see our latest video statistics. But most importantly, Walter, I'm a woman who finally knows her own worth, and it has nothing to do with whether you approve of me or not. Derek cleared his throat. Mom, maybe we could all sit down and talk about this like adults. I'm done talking, Derek. Your father came here to intimidate me into signing divorce papers, and I'm happy to oblige him. Walter looked shocked. You want the divorce? More than you'll ever know. I took the papers from his hand and sat down at Zara's kitchen table. In fact, I should probably thank you for filing first. It saves me the trouble. As I read through the divorce documents, I started laughing. Oh, Walter, this is rich. According to these papers, you want to keep the house, the car, and most of our savings because you've been the primary breadwinner for our marriage? That's right. I supported you for 40 years. And I provided 40 years of unpaid labor. Cooking, cleaning, childcare, elder care, household management, and emotional support. Conservative estimate, $60,000 a year. Multiply that by 40 years, and I've contributed $2.4 million worth of services to our household. Walter's mouth fell open. Derek looked stunned. But here's the thing, I continued, signing my name on the divorce papers with a flourish. But I don't want to fight you for material things. Keep the house where you treated me like an unpaid servant. Keep the car you never let me drive. I slid the signed papers back to him. But Walter, there's something you should know. Remember how you've been sending $2,000 a month to your siblings for the past 20 years? Money that could have paid for the travel I wanted? Walter's face went pale. How did you? I've always known Walter. But Derek, your father has sent nearly $500,000 to his brother and sister over the years, while telling me we couldn't afford a simple vacation. Derek turned to stare at his father. Dad, is that true? That's family business, Derek. But Mom needed support too. All those years she asked to travel and you told her we couldn't afford it while sending thousands to your siblings? I stood up and hugged my son. It's okay, Derek. The important thing is that you understand now. I walked to the door and opened it. Gentlemen, I believe we're finished here. Derek hugged me goodbye, whispering another apology. Walter stormed toward the door but stopped and turned back one last time. You'll regret this, Celeste. You'll come crawling back within 6 months, begging me to take you back. I smiled at him, the first genuine smile I'd given him in years. Walter, the only thing I regret is waiting so long to find the courage to leave. After they left, Zara and I sat processing what had just happened. Grandma, you were incredible. It was like watching a superhero origin story. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in decades. You know what the best part was? I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I was just free. But little did Walter know, his troubles were just beginning, and my new life was about to become everything he told me was impossible.
Over the next few months, my new life unfolded like a dream I'd never dared to have. The travel company partnership led to bigger opportunities, speaking at conferences about redefining retirement, magazine features about women starting over later in life, and appearances on national television shows. But the sweetest part wasn't my growing success. It was watching the consequences unfold for everyone who had doubted me. The first domino to fall was Walter's relationship with his siblings. Just as I'd predicted, once his divorce was finalized and he had to start living on his retirement income alone, the monthly payments to his brother and sister stopped immediately. Derek called to update me on the family drama. Mom, Uncle Jerry and Aunt Linda are furious with Dad. They're saying he led them to believe the money would keep coming forever, and now they're scrambling to figure out their own finances. And how's your father handling that? Not well. He's been calling everyone in the family, trying to get them to take his side, but apparently nobody wants to hear it.
Cousin Sarah told him that if he treated you better, maybe he wouldn't be in this mess. Meanwhile, my online following had grown to over 500,000 people. Women of all ages were sharing their own stories of late-life liberation, and many were crediting my journey with giving them the courage to make their own changes. Zara had become quite the savvy business manager, helping me navigate sponsorship deals and speaking engagements. "Rema, you're officially a multimedia empire now," she joked. But perhaps the most satisfying consequence came when I received an unexpected visitor at Zara's apartment. It was Christine, Derek's wife, and she looked nervous as she sat across from me. "Celeste, I owe you an apology. I was so concerned about my own convenience that I never stopped to think about what you were going through. When you stayed with us and I complained about cooking extra meals, I was being selfish. But more than that, watching your videos made me realize that I've been settling too. I'd been so focused on keeping everyone else happy that I've forgotten what makes me happy." "What do you mean?" Christine smiled. "I applied to nursing school. I've wanted to be a nurse since I was young, but there were always reasons to put it off. But if you can start a whole new career at 67, I can certainly go back to school at 45. I felt tears prick my eyes. "Christine, that's wonderful." Derek's been incredibly supportive. "I think watching you stand up for yourself taught him something about being a better partner." After Christine left, I called Derek to tell him how proud I was of both him and his wife. "Mom, I have to admit something. When you first left Dad, I thought you were being selfish. But watching Dad these past few months, seeing how entitled he is to everyone else's help, I realized I was becoming just like him. You're nothing like your father, Derek." I was heading that way, though. The way I dismissed your dreams, the way I expected Christine to handle all the domestic stuff, it was the same pattern. But you showed me there was a different way. One evening, about 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Walter called. "Celeste, I wanted to let you know that I'm selling the house." "Oh, where are you moving?" "I can't really afford to maintain it on my own. Without you taking care of everything, the upkeep costs are more than I realized. And since Jerry and Linda aren't speaking to me anymore, I have no one to help with maintenance." I waited, saying nothing. "I'm moving into a one-bedroom apartment across town. It's quite a change." There was a long pause. Then Walter said something I never thought I'd hear. "You were right, Celeste, about everything. I didn't appreciate what you did for our family. I didn't value your contributions, and I was wrong to dismiss your dreams." "I appreciate you saying that, Walter. I don't suppose there's any chance you'd consider giving us another try? I could be different. I could support your travel thing, your videos." I looked around Zara's apartment, which had become more of a home to me in 6 months than the house I'd shared with Walter had been in 4 decades. I thought about my upcoming trip to Europe, the book I was writing, the women who wrote to me every day. "Walter, I'm flattered that you finally realized I have value. But the woman you're apologizing to isn't the same woman that left you. She's someone completely new. And this new woman doesn't need your approval to live her dreams." "But, Celeste, I have to go, Walter. I have a video call with my publisher in 20 minutes to discuss my book tour." After I hung up, Zara looked at me with admiration. "How do you feel about that conversation?" I considered the question. You know what? I feel grateful. Grateful? If Walter had been a better husband, if he'd supported my dreams from the beginning, I might never have discovered how strong I really am. I might never have learned that I could build a whole new life from scratch. I smiled at my granddaughter, this amazing young woman who had believed in me when no one else would. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes, it's becoming so genuinely happy that the people who hurt you realize exactly what they lost. But the ultimate victory was still to come, and it would prove once and for all that the woman they underestimated had become unstoppable.
1 year after I'd walked out of Walter's house with nothing but a suitcase and a broken phone, I was standing backstage at the National Convention Center in Washington, D.C., preparing to accept the Inspirational Content Creator of the Year award. My book, Never Too Late, A Grandmother's Guide to Starting Over, had hit the New York Times bestseller list. My social media following had grown to over 2 million people across all platforms. I'd been featured on the cover of 3 different magazines and had my own show in development with a major streaming service. But none of that compared to the feeling of pure joy I experienced as I looked out at the audience and saw Derek, Christine, and Zara in the front row, all beaming with pride. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer said, "please welcome this year's winner, Celeste Morrison." As I walked out onto the stage, the audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. I was wearing a beautiful blue dress, the color of the Pacific Ocean, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely, authentically myself. "Thank you," I said, gripping the award in my hands. A year and a half ago, I was a 67-year-old woman who had never been further from home than the next county over. My husband told me I was too old for dreams, too worthless to survive on my own, too insignificant to matter to anyone. I paused, looking directly at the camera that was broadcasting this moment live. Today, I want to speak to every woman who has been told she's too old, too late, too whatever to chase her dreams. I want to speak to every person who has been made to feel invisible, unimportant, or past their expiration date. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Your dreams don't have expiration dates. Your worth doesn't diminish with age. Your right to happiness doesn't decrease just because someone else needs you to stay small so they can feel big. I held up the award, its crystal surface catching the stage lights. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to every woman who refused to accept that her story was over just because someone else said it was. It belongs to my granddaughter Zara, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. It belongs to my son Derek, who learned that supporting someone's dreams is more important than protecting your own comfort. And it belongs to every single person who has followed our journey and found the courage to start their own. The applause was deafening, but I held up my hand because I wasn't finished. But most of all, I want to thank the people who told me I couldn't do this. Thank you for underestimating me. Thank you for dismissing my dreams. Thank you for making me feel invisible for so long that when I finally found my voice, I had a lot to say. I smiled at the camera, thinking about Walter watching this from his one-bedroom apartment, about all the people who had doubted me, about everyone who had ever been made to feel like their dreams didn't matter. Because here's what I learned. The best revenge isn't proving your doubters wrong. It's proving yourself right. It's discovering that you were always enough, always capable, always deserving of the life you dreamed of. You just needed to believe it yourself. As I left the stage, award in hand, my phone was already buzzing with messages and notifications, interview requests, congratulations from fellow creators, and thousands of comments from people who had been watching the ceremony live. But the message that meant the most came from Derek. "Mom, I've never been prouder to be your son. Thank you for showing all of us what courage looks like." Later that evening at the after-party, a young woman approached me with tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Morrison, I just wanted to thank you. I'm 28, and I've been in a relationship where my boyfriend constantly tells me my dreams are unrealistic. Watching your journey gave me the courage to leave him and apply for graduate school. If you can start over at 67, I can certainly start over at 28. I hugged her tightly. "Honey, you can start over at any age. The only time it's too late to change your life is when you're dead." As the evening wound down, Zara and I found ourselves sitting on a hotel balcony, looking out at the city lights and reflecting on the incredible journey we had taken together. "Grandma, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found the courage to leave?" I thought about that alternate version of myself, still in Walter's house, still making his meals and biting my tongue, still watching other people live their dreams while mine withered away. I'd probably still be there convincing myself that being comfortable was the same thing as being happy. But you know what scares me most about that version of my life? It's not that I would have been unhappy, it's that I would have died never knowing who I really was or what I was capable of. I looked at my granddaughter, this brilliant young woman who had helped me discover possibilities I never knew existed. I said, "The greatest tragedy isn't failing to achieve your dreams, it's never giving yourself the chance to try." As we sat there in comfortable silence, I felt my phone buzz with one final message of the night. It was from an unknown number, but when I opened it, I recognized Walter's writing. "Congratulations on your award. I watched the ceremony tonight.
I'm proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see how remarkable you've always been." I showed the message to Zara, who raised her eyebrows. "Are you going to respond?" I thought about it for a moment, then deleted the message without replying. Some chapters in your life deserve to be closed, and some people deserve to watch your success from a distance. I put my phone away and looked up at the stars. Tomorrow, Zara and I would fly to Italy for our next adventure, and I would continue inspiring people to believe in themselves no matter what age they were or how long they'd been told their dreams didn't matter. At 68 years old, I was living proof that it's never too late to become who you were always meant to be. And that, my friends, is the sweetest revenge of all.